Well, let's get more now on the story of Christmas. And I'm joined here live in studio by Father Tony Amissah of the Divine Word Catholic Parish here in Nairobi. Father, welcome to Africa Live this evening. Well, we've seen the stories here of merrymaking and, holidays and so forth and so on. But what really is the meaning of Christmas?
Christmas is supposed to be the birth of Jesus. And that is what we celebrate. We celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. But unfortunately, it has taken a material aspect of it. But there's the spiritual part of it. And the spiritual part is what the Christians celebrate. Christ is born in our hearts, and that's what we really celebrate. So that the peace that Christ brought to this world will be exhibited by the Christians all over the world.
Well, you talk about Christmas having taken on a more materialistic face to it, though. But in your opinion, though, do you think the season of Christmas still serves the purpose of which it was intended?
Partially, I would say it is serving its purpose. Why am I saying partially? Partially because there are some Christians who look at Christmas as a season of renewal. A season when Christ is born in their hearts. But there are other Christians who also look at more the material part of it. I'd like to give an example. A place like Kayole in Nairobi, you may find many young people who will always think that Christmas is a moment of drinking and jumping and going around and doing other things that do not matter. But when we come down to the Christian meaning of Christmas, we come to realize that it is more spiritual. It's not things about drinking. It's more about the inner search for God.
It is about, in your opinion, of course, it is about the inner search for God, though. But how can Christians, though, at this moment and during this season, how can they make the best of this time?
We call Jesus the King of Peace. And so anyone who follows the King of Peace should be a peacemaker. And that is what I would think many Christians should focus on. We as Christians should be peacemakers wherever we are. If Jesus is really the Lord of our lives, then we must be people who will preach peace wherever we are. We must exhibit peace. We must lead even in the forefront of making other people know that we are peacemakers. Not by words, but by action. And I would like us to look at some different personalities who have also exhibited peace in the world. Like Desmond Tutu. He was one person who exhibited peace in action. And I look at him as a model for our Christians in Africa to look up to. Someone who was just like us, who also exhibited Christ in his own little way, to show peace wherever he was. We
should exhibit peace, and it is about the peace in us and about peace on the continent. But when you look at the African continent, though, even though it is a continent with a large number of Christians, and it's very religious in that sense, in terms of the Christian faith, though, but there are a lot of wars and violence that dominate the continent. How do we look at it in that way, in the fact that this is really a Christian-dominated continent?
You are very right. I may not support you fully in that particular area. When we look at the countries in Africa that are really fighting or at war, the majority of them are not Christian-dominated countries. But I would not rule out the fact that in some parts of Africa, there are wars, and those parts where there are wars are Christian-dominated countries, like Congo. But I wouldn't rule out the fact that if we are able to bring out what Christ really presented to us as Christians, what Christmas really means, I think war will be out of the question. As I said it earlier on, Desmond Tutu exhibited it, and we can also do it. I really pray that Christians will look at what Christ really brought to this world. What did Christ bring to our world? He brought peace, and we must exhibit that peace wherever we are.
Putting aside the material aspect of it, though, in this time of Christmas, what should Christians today be reflecting on?
Christians must be reflecting. Let us take our country Kenya as an example, I would say Christians must look at what can I contribute to this country, materially or spiritually, whichever way, or whatever way we are going to present, it should be something that can help the country to grow. If it's material, how much can I contribute to make the poor in the society lift themselves up from the poverty to a stage where they'll be able to stand up and be proud of themselves? If it is something spiritual, we must pray for our country, our leaders who are ruling us, that they can also be God-fearing people and not just materialistic people. Not only to look at our material aspect of life, but to see more. What can we give to our people which can also uplift their spirit as people of this country? But I will also say that just as we are trying to pray for our leaders, we must not forget that we first have to pray for ourselves. If we are people who are grabbing things or material things, then we cannot be able to pray for our leaders who are also grabbing. But if we are able to pray at people to refrain from grabbing, then we can be able to also pray for our leaders.
Looking at it briefly, though, across the globe, though, are people still living up to the ideals of Christianity?
Yes, I will say. We have many good people in Kenya who are Christians, and we can mention many of them. There are people all over the world who are also really living the ideal of the Christian life. Many people donate generously out of Christianity. And I think that our world is being guided by that particular spirit, the spirit of giving. And that's what God did to us, actually. God gave us his son, Jesus. He gave him to us freely. And that is the same thing we also emulate whenever we are also giving out things. We are giving out because God gives, and we also give him.
All right, Father Tony Amissah of the Divine Word Catholic Parish here in Nairobi. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too.
And thank you
very much
for being with us here on Africa Live.